Hey guys, Darren here. Welcome to Mayhem Country Living. I want to go over some of the comments that I'd gotten from my video, Depression Era Living, Sleeping in a Haystack. And it was just stuff that I remember my grandfather had told me when I was just a little fella. And of how he lived and what he did and everything, and it just kind of, some of it floats to the surface periodically, and I comment on it or do a video. And so I'm going to read the responses I got from you guys. And if you commented, thanks, and we'll try to do more of these. So everybody will get kind of a little shout out that had commented. Salty Shellback, he's a good guy, has a really nice channel. He said, yep, most people now have no idea what hard times are. I admit I have not missed many meals, but I do know what it's like to go hungry for a while and wonder where my next meal is coming from. You have to watch his channel to get a good understanding. I won't tell his story. He tells his story so much better. Good channel. You should watch it. And then Bama Boy, B-A-M-A space B-O-I, he's family. He's a cousin of mine. And he said, wow, I almost didn't catch this one. He said, glad I saw it. And that's all I'll say. He is family. And so he grew up with the grandfather I was talking about. Different stages. We were at different stages. I'm 18 or 20 years a little bit older than he is, but so it's interesting how his perspective is and mine was, because I was looking at my grandfather when I was this big, and he's looking at his granddaddy when he was grown. So it's really interesting. 67 Ford, he's got a really good channel as well. He said back in the 70s, I went camping near Real Walton's Mountain. We stopped at a country store, an old man walked by on the way to church. The store owner said he lived in the hills 10 miles away. This is back in the 70s. He walked to church every week. He had no electricity and a battery-powered radio, no running water. He was 70, and the store owner said that his mother would walk a little bit later after him to go to church. That's interesting. Back in the day, Granddaddy told me, and he had it and he gave it to me, and it has been lost in divorces and moves and all that stuff. They were called farm radios because you could, they were big cabinet radios, but you would take the battery off of your farm tractor and you'd hook it to the radio and it would play. And I'm going to say it was 6 volt, something funky like that. And they were called farm radios. And so you would listen to the radio that night or a couple of nights in a row, and then you would take that battery out, put it back in your tractor, roll your tractor off if the battery was dead, crank it off if it was dead, crank it up, charge it, drive it around, use it on the farm. You bring the battery back in that night, listen to the radio. That's, listen to the Lone Ranger or Little Orphan Annie, whatever it was, or the Fireside Chats. So that was, that was interesting, and I can relate to that. Tom Reed had commented, said, excellent video, love the history. We used to sleep in our barn growing up, making forts out of square bales. Hay was always more comfortable than the straw. Amen. For the longest, I did not know there was a difference between hay and straw. Now I know. There is a difference. Deep Blue Dude. I'm not familiar with you, but you commented. So back in 77, I was 17. Me and a buddy hitchhiked from Florida to California. Yep, we slept in hay bales, pastures, old barns. The biggest issue was chiggers, and my buddy suffering from hay fever. Thanks for bringing back the memory. People were hard back then. People are going to need to get hard again the way things are looking. Absolutely, I agree completely. Detroit Redneck. Let me scroll down a little bit. He has a good channel, and he's always been a good guy for commenting and giving me really good insight. We must do what we have to do on my 1 acre lot. I will not go hungry. And he goes into detail saying what he has done to create a food forest, as well as fish on the pond that they have and everything. I don't want to read a whole lot of the stuff because I don't know how much he wants a lot of people to know about, even though he commented publicly. I don't know if he wants everybody to see. But really good job, Detroit Redneck. You've done very well on that lot, and you should do well should something ever happen. Dodson Arms Company. This guy, you have to go to his channel. Dodson Arms Company on YouTube. DODSONARMSCO on YouTube. You got to go to his channel and look at his stuff. If you need to know about guns, munitions, weapons, this guy can tell you everything about it. He said, interesting video. He worked with an old man that lived 4 years under a stack of abandoned railroad ties during the Depression. I think many survived because they had a circuit they traveled around while searching for food, with 4 or 5 cabins or sleeping sites of various kinds over a huge area. I agree completely, Dodson Arms. My grandfather, on my father's side, I'll tell the story in a little bit. His name was Grandpa Lyle, Lyle. Down below his property, railroad tracks weren't very far from it where he worked. And there was a cabin made out of square logs, railroad ties, but these were the long ones. These weren't like the 6-foot ones. These are like the 10 or 12-foot long ones. Real long one, creosote, staggered, and made up and chinked. And it was a very low roof. I'm going to say it was like 7 or 8 feet tall, and it had a flat roof almost. And hobos that rode on the rail lived there, and they would do like a circuit. And so it was interesting because when they weren't living there, and this was, during the 70s, 76, 77, we would go in there and play, but they'd run you off if they were there. It wouldn't hurt you or nothing, but you get out of them kids, get out of here, and scare the crap out of you. And then Doc Falcon, he's one of my guys on Patreon. He's one of my patrons. He said, are you sure the hooch didn't throw me out? No, she did not. She would like to. I'm quite sure, but she did not. Christy Betts says that she slept in a hay bale once for the heck of it. It was very scratchy, and she had a backache. Got some funny looks from the cows when she came out. I agree completely. The kick in the butt is I was moving that hay bale, that round bale, yesterday afternoon to try to put it up on a pallet to get it off the ground, because all this is a learning process for me. Don't store round bales on the end on the ground because they just suck up moisture. So I was flipping it over, and the fire ants had built beds in there, and my arms were covered with fire ants. And for some reason, they only sting you all at once. They wait, everybody gets settled in, and they say, "You ready? You ready? Okay, bite." And they bit me up and down. And it was like I would just take my hand and just rub them and kill them all, over and over and over. But it was eventful. Now, we're almost at 10 minutes. I want to tell you the story about my grandfather, Grandpa Lyle. He was a very tall man, worked for the railroad. I'm going to say he worked for Pullman. And if you know anything about railroads, Pullman is a type of car that you slept in when you traveled. A Pullman car. And some of the stuff I may be off on, but he worked for the railroad in Childersburg, Alabama. And they would ride in somewhere further down the rail line to a hub that they worked at. And so he would take the train to work. I know a lot of you are thinking, well, we know a lot of people that take the train. No. The conductor would slow down the train, say it was at 5 o'clock in the morning, it ran through on regular times. The conductor would slow the train down slow enough for my grandfather to run and jump on and ride the train in. And he did that while carrying one of those black lunch pails. So he would run, and this was in his 50s, he would run along the rails, jump, and catch onto the train and climb up in and go to somewhere, wherever he was. I remember he was very tall at the end of his life, very lean. He had an office at the end of the house, which I thought was interesting, where he sat and paid bills and everything. He was a Mason, so on his left hand he had his wedding ring, and on his right hand, I want to say, he had a big Mason's ring, Masonic temple, and he was involved with them, and that's about all. I know a lot more about him, but those are the things that just stand out. He cut firewood up until his 70s to heat his house during the winter, and yeah, up until his 70s. And then all the children, he had 9 children, they all chipped in and bought a central heat and air system for him or something like that. And this was 79, 80, maybe something like that. So it's amazing. We go from these very quiet, rugged men who had their own demons, of course. None of them were perfect, and they suffered from all sorts of problems. And they still managed to take care of their families and their people. It's very interesting. And it's very sad to see how far we have fallen down. I look at all the things that we have done, and you see all these guys on TV who are supposed to be these strong men, these outdoors survivalists and all that stuff, and most of them are just like, I think it's laughable because a lot of that crap that you see on TV now, if you lived out in the country, we all did that stuff when we were 10. And then you see grown men doing that crap and playing it, and it's like, come on, guys, you should have studied harder in school and gotten a job or some sort of career, as opposed to, saying you're great in the woods. It's laughable. Anyway, I always have a very dim view of those people who eat tree bark professionally because they're silly. But I just wanted to rattle all that stuff off to you. It's amazing about the grandparents and the great-grandparents and our parents who did the strong, quiet things that you don't hear about anymore, or who would be accused of being toxically masculine, whatever that is. Post some comments in below about your parents and your great-grandparents. I hadn't even started talking about moms yet. Moms are killer. Can't beat moms. Moms are stronger than dads. Take care of your people, guys.